how the boys destroyed Marvel. I honestly think Marvel destroyed Marvel with all their Vogue garbage and whatnot.
Predictable, formulaic, all spectacle with no actual substance. This is the reality of the post-Endgame Marvel Cinematic Universe. Nothing makes this more clear than watching The Boys, a morally complex drama with realistic characters and its biting satire are killing the MCU. When it was released in 2019, Boys reinvented the superhero genre by asking one simple question. What would a world with superpowers really look like? Well, it's not a pretty picture. The heroes are steeped in corruption, threatening, abusing, or murdering whoever they want. Meanwhile, their crimes are covered up and hidden by the mega corporation Vault, which uses money and power to stay in control.
Just like politics now in the real day. Nice. Pretty accurate, I have to say.
Main characters are a group of outcasts, whose lives were torn apart by the system they're desperately trying to fight. The show makes it clear that it's a satire of modern superheroes across the board. The main villain, Homelander, is a clear example, a warped and twisted analogue of Superman, who takes glee in violence and cruelty. But just like everything in The Boys, he's not black and white. Homelander isn't just another evil Superman, like the character from Injustice. He's been traumatized, raised in a lab, and isolated from anything that even looks like a real family. He's desperate for love and attention, while seeing everyone...
Okay. Who of you cannot imagine a world where this someday becomes a reality? Because I can. I can easily do that. If something like this would be possible, it would be done. Without question by everyone. It wouldn't be even close.
Everyone is either beneath him or not worth anything at all. And he's not just violent to achieve his goals, he's violent because he's got a hair-trigger temper and the emotional maturity of a teenager. In short, he's a deep and intricate character, and just one of the many examples for why The Boys is destroying the MCU. The past few years haven't been kind to Disney's money-printing machine. With just a few exceptions like the Spider-Man sequels, the Marvel films released after Endgame have been commercial and creative disasters. Poor writing has plagued them all, with focus group characters...
Poor writing is... Well, it's actually the biggest problem here. Because if you think about Endgame and everything until that point, there was a story, there was a point, there was a goal in mind, there was a visible goal, and they just needed to create a really good way to that goal. And they did it. And guess what? While that was happening, everyone liked it. But now, that goal is past. And now the only thing they have, considering their writers are absolute garbage, considering their ideas are absolute filth and reused assets at best of times, and well, look at this. Have you seen Thor: Love and Thunder? It's like a woman's power trip fantasy movie. That's pretty much it. She saves him everywhere. He's stupid. He's inept. He is incapable of making a single decent decision in life, while she is the bestest ever, obviously. Yeah. Surprisingly, people don't like that. Wow, who would have expected, right?
Characters acting out formulaic plotlines which lack any real tension, and The Boys has shown audiences just how compelling the genre can be. Alongside other shows like Invincible, it pushed the genre forward, and most importantly...
Invincible... Is the next season of Invincible already out? If it is, I'm missing it. But, I know how it ends and blah, blah, blah. But I still want to watch the animated version because it's gonna be tight. It's gonna be good. And if you haven't watched Invincible, you probably should. It's really, really good. It's also kind of like on The Boys level of what they do and how they do things, but different.
It matured with its audience, and for all the people who've been following Marvel films for over a decade, it's like a breath of fresh air. The Boys took the best parts of the MCU that people loved and made it even better. It took the parts that people don't like and made fun of them. The Boys excel at poking fun of the world we live in though, not just Marvel films. Its commentary on them flows naturally as a result of what it says about our society. The endgame scene was just pandering and laughably obvious. It's presented as if it's something revolutionary, like they're proving something about how strong women really are. The scene was made fun of around the world, and The Boys didn't pull any punches.
Ah, man. The Vogue part of the MCU is absolutely just without question completely out of whack at this point. Because the worst part about Marvel and them going Vogue and Hollywood, Disney and all of that garbage going Vogue is the fact that they want to write stories where women are the bosses when they're empowered and all of that stuff. And by itself, that's not necessarily bad. You know, do it in a good way, and people are gonna like it. People are gonna watch it. There's absolutely no problem with any of that. But the way they try to elevate women is by elevating them to an unreasonable standard. They're perfect. They do everything right. They always know what's happening. They have the plan, while everyone around them is just mentally deficient, to say the least. You know, especially any man. Any man is just a drooling mess that's waiting to be rescued at any time. And it's like, okay, yeah, this seems a little bit much, and no one likes it. Normal people who don't even know what the word woke means don't like it. It is what it is.
Strong women really are. The scene was made fun of. But before we continue, I want to talk about a video sponsor. Have you ever Googled yourself
What is this sponsor even? Aura?
and was shocked to see your personal information exposed in one of those public
Oh, this is the one that deletes your stuff off the internet. Okay. I mean, I don't know how effective this is or how honestly useful this is, but I guess this is not the worst sponsor in the world, because here we, just use Moon's code. Click on their video in the description if you want to use it. It's probably a decent-ish product. Anyway, wait, what just happened?
They didn't even need to change the scene at all to parody it. It's ridiculous enough on its own. The best satire and parody, though, doesn't just...
Oh, also, the best satire and parody. Who the fuck even are these ones? Okay, we got Mantis, we got everyone's favorite Scarlet Witch, who's actually a good character. Because she's legitimately OP and she... Man, if they just go into her crazy side, it would be great movies, okay? The way she just blows out Black Bolt's brains out of his skull, man, that's some good stuff right there. And she can do all of those crazy things. But even in her movie where she's supposed to be crazy, she can't catch the right... Bruh, she's so powerful she can just obliterate the world pretty much with a snap of the fingers. Man, even when they're trying to make someone OP, they fail. I mean, the Scarlet Witch Wanda is one of the best characters to do OP things with. Well, they completely just dropped the ball on that. And let's look at the rest here. Oh, it's Valkyrie. Yeah, no one gives a shit character. Oh, look at that. I forgot her name. And it's everyone's favorite Brie Larson. Yeah, I'm sure fans are lining up to just see her. 100%. Mantis is a good character, though. But that's from Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a rare non-stinker.
The scene at all to parody it. It's ridiculous enough on its own. The best satire and parody, though, doesn't just work as a collection of jokes. You still need the substance. And the boys did this and more, giving us an actually satisfying and hilarious girl power scene without a single ounce of cringe. Instead of the orchestral swell and the generic bad guys to crush, it's a real fight against a powerful villain with fitting music. It actually has meaning for the plot. It's pretty much better in every way. The difference is all in the meanings behind the scenes. Endgame scenes fell flat because it was completely hollow. Corporations don't care about girl power at all. They're just using it to appeal to different groups of people. Disney put that scene into...
He's completely right. And the worst part about this, they are trying to appeal to a super ultra minority. That's the worst part about this. Now, if 90% of people did think that way, then these things would be a success. But no one thinks that way.
Do exactly that. It's the same reason they're ruining Snow White. The hypocrisy is what really defines it, and The Boys does a great job of showing this. Just like real companies, Vought makes every effort to look as politically conscious and inclusive as possible.
Yep.
It's all for the image, of course, a cover for the awful abuses of power that go on behind the scenes. The show even goes into how a politically correct environment doesn't actually help anyone, and it can actively be used against people. Mevi, a bisexual superheroine on the show, has her identity used against her when Homelander forces her to come out on live TV.
And we have a gay hero, Queen Maeve.
Nice.
For you, Maria.
Companies use their political preaching to get away with things all the time. It's a part of what The Boys is satirizing. Disney makes grand overtures.
Yeah. Most people are grifters, that's true.
About gay rights, all while censoring and selling their films to Russia and the Middle East, censoring any gay scenes possible. Nestle used the Rainforest Alliance to quietly sweep under the rug their breaking of all their connections with Fed.
They tried to hide the fact that Black Panther is about a black dude in China. Let's not forget Disney even went that far.
Trade. The boys' point here is that powerful people and organizations, which have no sympathy for the lives they ruin, will latch on to any hot issue to distract you from their own crimes.
Obviously.
We won't need a day to prove we're just as fast, or strong, or skilled.
This symbolism runs throughout the show. Homelander and the other superheroes are literally representations of the power that some people have. The deaths and suffering they cause is far greater than anything Homelander ever did on the show. But just like the famous quote says, at some point you cross the line from personal tragedies into statistics. Butcher's speech to Huey towards the beginning of the show lays it all out. People don't cause a fuss because they don't want to listen. Abuses of power happen. People die for corporations as bottom lines all the time. But as Butcher says,
Never think that the company you work for is gonna care about you. If they say lift a box and that box is heavy, you just don't fucking lift it. That company is not gonna care when your back doesn't work properly and now every day you live in pain. They're not gonna care. No one does. So you being the hero and doing the right thing for a small moment, which no one is gonna remember in 5 minutes, never do that. That's just a way to ruin your life.
Damage.
it's part of the plan and the world moves on without noticing. The boys systematically picks this essential lie apart. We see the violence and it affects us because it's direct. Homelander does it himself, rather than signing some document which eventually leads to people losing their lives. With just a few degrees of separation, it all gets easier to ignore. It's not the only way that the boys is far more connected to the world we live in. It actually creates a compelling and uncertain narrative, which is most visible in the overall story. You know who's going to come out on top in a Marvel film. The heroes always win. The movie begins, they play up one character flaw that often isn't really even a flaw, then the villain turns up, gets the conflict going, and the heroes overcome their trials and finally emerge victorious.
What trials? What trials are we talking about here? In the current Marvel landscape, what trials are they overcoming? Because I have no idea what trials they need to overcome. What trials did Brie Larson overcome? She is pompous, never got punished for being pompous, then she got rewarded for being pompous, and it just keeps on happening. What trials?
It's a formula that they have used over and over again, making it the junk food of cinema. But for many, this is satisfying enough. Infinity War was so successful because it reinvented this formula. They made Thanos the hero of his own story, and he actually won in the end. The amount of discussion online and the fever around the movie was insane, but it was a one-time thing, and since then, Marvel's villains and their plotlines have retreated back into their predictable formula.
Well, one reason why Thanos was such a good villain was because, well, the guy was actually menacing, dangerous, and got shit done. Think about it, who replaced Thanos? Kang, the not really so conqueror. That's who replaced Thanos. The big bad. The guy who destroys everyone and wins at the end. Yeah, let's forget the fact that, you know, the first time he got introduced, he pretty much got insta-killed. Then even some loser like Ant-Man just absolutely wiped the floor with him and won against him. Like, the current version of Thanos has lost already 5 times. But Marvel somehow thinks that people are still afraid of him. Every time you see King the Not Conqueror, you're thinking like, how is he gonna get defeated in 5 seconds? And you know that's gonna be it. There's no villain. Thanos worked because he was a great villain. He was dangerous. You knew that he is gonna actually accomplish things. Kang, though, he's a punching bag laughingstock. Pretty bad.
Whereas The Boys is so effective because you have no idea what's actually going to happen in an episode.
And yes, the reason why The Boys are effective, think about it. Homelander is an actual dangerous maniacal guy that could just delete you off the face of the world, and he has the power to do so. Plus, you know, he has backing and everything's corrupt. There's danger. You know if the main good guys are gonna do something at random and stupid, they're gonna get punished for it. It is how it is.
Boys don't always win. In fact, they normally lose. They don't have superpowers or billions of dollars like their adversaries. The odds are always firmly against them, but they fight anyway, which makes them far more heroic than any other overpowered Marvel hero. The plot doesn't play out to hit the specific notes of the superhero movie. The characters made their own decisions, motivated by their own desires, entirely grounded within the context of the world. These narrative decisions make the show chaotic and completely unpredictable, which is just one of the ways that The Boys is so much closer to reality, while still being completely off of the wall.
Nice.
The sense of having no idea what's going to happen next is also the main reason why Homelander is such an effective and terrifying villain. When he's on screen, you've got every reason to be afraid. He can switch from smiling to the cameras to murderous rage in an instant. He treats violence like nothing, lacking any empathy for his victims. In one scene, he takes the hearing away from a blind superhero, dooming him to a life trapped in his own head. He does it just to prove a point, because he finds it insulting.
I mean, terrible.
That someone with a disability could be compared to him. Now, plenty of villains are violent at the drop of a hat, but with Homelander, there's absolutely no way to predict it. It helps that Anthony Starr's performance is one of the best we've seen in decades.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between random, useless, and stupid acts of violence and actually calculated evil. There's a huge difference in that. And this is what modern Marvel also lacks in, honestly, droves. That's what currently media lacks in the first place. Now, you can make a good and compelling character that just does evil things for the sake of being evil, randomly and things like that. For example, one of the greatest examples of that is probably Sephiroth. But, usually they don't do it, because then you need to actually explain this character and make them understandable, relatable. You need to give them a reason why maybe what he does is evil, but it's not purely random, or things like that. And that's kind of hard to do, and obviously that's what current Disney and Marvel can't do.
When we see him performing for the cameras, Anthony nails Homelander's wide smile combined with his completely dead eyes.
You fucking...
His mastery of his expressions as a whole is really what seals the deal. The scene where Homelander talks to his alter ego in a mirror is a masterclass. He goes through the whole range, showcasing fear, anger, guilt, and hatred, all in the space of a single minute.
And then, my boy, you can finally be who you were always meant to be.
It's this iconic performance that's thrust Homelander into the public consciousness. You can't go 5 minutes online without seeing his face used in a meme or as a reaction. It serves to make Homelander that much more terrifying as the lives of the people around him completely depend on the unstable emotions that Anthony Starr portrays so well. When he's violent, it's often without any warning or build-up. At the end of the day though, any villain that can make the word yummers intimidating is something special.
Yeah. Yummers. Guess you wanted to cram in as much fat fuck as possible, huh?
At the beginning, the performances were what made the MCU into the juggernaut we know today. Without Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr., the whole franchise would have had a hard time getting off of the ground. They're what catapulted it towards success, but most of the big names now have left, their stories have finished, and they probably won't be back. Remaining stars like Benedict Cumberbatch and Chris Hemsworth have found themselves shackled by poor
Cumberbatch. What a stupid name.
scripts and loose motivations. The Boys has the advantage of multiple seasons and episodes to develop these characters, but this is even considering that the villains in the MCU never even came close to what they've achieved. Most of the time, they're everything Homelander isn't. Their motivations rarely make sense outside of moving the plot forward. Their plans are predictable and often stupid, nearly always devolving into a big fight scene. A lot of the time, they're simply just weaker than the hero in every way, and it means there's even less stakes, especially because we know they'll lose in the end. The unsubtle and one-dimensional writing in the MCU mirrors what political commentary they do stuff in.
Oh man, She-Hulk was an absolute disaster. Well, also Brie Larson. You know what's my favorite part about Brie Larson and Captain Whatever? It is the fact how hard they try to make her look sexy at times. Unironically, that's my favorite part. They try so desperately hard to make her look womanly and hot at times. It is insane the amount of effort they put into that. It's crazy, dude. It really
Disney's
is.
attempts just pile more ammunition into the culture war. Little 10-second clips to show they're taking a side, a battle that can never be won because it's defined by its division. Issues then get absorbed by the war, turn into simplified yes or no questions, and then they get pitted against each other. And The Boys satirizes this through its treatment of the fans. They're clearly allegorical for modern political fanatics in today's societies. Homelander's fans are Trump supporters, Starlight's the Democrats, and like good satire, it pokes fun at both sides of the fence. But its greater point is that the whole thing is a farce to begin with. The Boys reduces the modern culture war down to what it really is.
I don't actually know if that's true, but the thing is, this happens everywhere, right? This happened in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. This has happened in Star Wars. This has well, not modern Star Wars, and not modern Lord of the Rings, that's for sure. But this has happened in pretty much all great media depictions. People, in a lot of cases, yeah, they are made off of something real, and, you know, some elements of something have been taken. Because all these medias are great because they're realistic. They feel like something we already know. We have seen this, we recognize it, and we understand these behaviors. But that doesn't mean that they're necessarily made from real-life things. They are just made vaguely to be real-life things, and then people just associate things to them. Now, I don't know if it's true for The Boys, but this is just a general thing that happens, you know? Because they're just written good. So every faction is going to be made realistic. Like, for example, in Star Wars currently, who is the Republic? I have no fucking clue. I don't know what the Republic equivalent of the modern day is. They're just a bunch of idiots with a bunch of girl bosses. I don't know what that's supposed to be, but in a good series, you would be able to to draw a parallel with something in real life. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that's true. Sometimes this, sometimes it isn't, but you are always able to draw these parallels in good productions, in good movies, in good series.
Toxic fandoms. The people on either side aren't actually thinking about the issues, they're just rooting for their team. Both valid and powerful institutions in real life take advantage of this and promote it as much as they can. And if half the country is constantly at war with the other half, then it lets them keep everything exactly the same. It's another way they divert and redirect people's anger. Which is why it makes so much sense for the superheroes to stand in for the politicians. As just like the politicians, they're ludicrously powerful, but they have to make hollow speeches and they get paraded around for their cameras. The real power is in the money and the corporations without in the show. It's ironic that the show that's done the most to make this visible to people is completely owned and operated by Amazon, the picture child for monolithic mega corporations. The show never actually calls out or satirizes Amazon itself, although that doesn't mean it's just hypocrisy. Amazon probably didn't think it was going to be such a hit to begin with, and now that it's this popular, they can't interfere with it. There's unfortunately no other way the show can
they can interfere with it, but keep in mind, Amazon is one of those companies that actually doesn't. If you look at Google, woke shit constantly, right? You know, politics, identity politics, this, that, and that, right? But Amazon fucking makes you pee in a bottle if you want to get paid. Amazon doesn't care about all of this garbage. So as long as The Boys is winning and doing good, they're just gonna capitalize that as much as possible with spin-offs, with probably they also have games around The Boys and whatnot, probably mobile games, and you know, things like that. Amazon is not gonna interfere with something that's already doing way better than expected, because Amazon understands the basic principle of life. If you did not expect this thing to succeed, but it does something right. Okay? And you have no clue what it does right, so you might as well just use the fact that it's doing good currently and let it do good, and step in if it starts to do bad.
Some big money flowing in. It would be nice to imagine that Eric Kripke, the showrunner, got one over on Amazon by getting them to fund something which indirectly criticizes them, but the reality is probably less satisfying. The Boys is blowing away Marvel's idea of humor as well.
Speaking of which, I haven't seen Translucent around anywhere. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you?
Cunt's invisible. He could be standing in that fucking
True.
corner, plugging one out right now for all we know.
Instead of witty quips which take you out of the moment, The Boys keeps it to a minimum, mostly playing it deadpan. It's the situations that are funny, the characters themselves create the laughs. It's the kind of humour that adds to the story rather than making it feel like the characters are just taking it all as a joke. But if there's one thing Marvel's always been able to rely on, it's their ability to make a spectacle. It doesn't really matter if the plot and the dialogue suck, as long as the CGI is...
I mean, the CGI is good at times, but man, Marvel's CGI has been absolutely through a dumpster for how long now? I actually covered this. I don't remember even the video name. This was like a year ago about Marvel and CGI. Their CGI has gone down the shitter because, well, essentially the people promoting the CGI don't care about people who actually can do CGI because that's not their criteria how they choose who is good. Because again, keep in mind, in modern day American, modern day politics, and especially Hollywood, people don't get picked for the job because they're good at the job. They get picked because they have the right leanings or they're looking the right as good enough. And that's what happened with Marvel and their CGI. The current Marvel CGI is absolute dog water compared to what it was previously. It's an absolute abysmal joke. I'm sure you have seen memes about it. And that's all because, well, the people who hired those people only care about the opinions of a select group of people who all think the same, and those people are not good at their job. They just have the right political leanings and viewpoints.
Is on point, that's half the battle for Marvel films, which is why people like Martin Scorsese describe this as the junk food of cinema. Recently though, even the special effects have been slipping, like the floating head from Thor. The effects just don't have the same impact anymore. With absolutely everything being green screened in, it's really hard for any of it to seem like it's actually there. And of course, The Boys has Marvel beat here. The practical effects are what makes it. By combining the same high level of special effects that Marvel has, the actual prosthetics and props underneath, makes it much more believable. If you want spectacle, The Boys has it in spades. Of course, it's not competing for the cinematic experience, but it doesn't really need to. The Boys has taken advantage of the shift in the audience. The MCU has been going on for 15 years. Lots of people who grew up with it are past adulthood. They're not looking for what the MCU has been doing for all that time.
I would make the argument they made Thor a dumbass. I just don't think it does the character justice. It's a very see the joke, take the joke, regardless of what it does to the characters kind of mentality.
They're looking for something to fill the gap, and shows like The Boys and Invincible have just done that. They actually grew with their audience. The MCU has done the opposite. The most recent Thor film and the upcoming Avengers film shows they're doubling down on keeping the kids happy, and in the process, they're alienating the people who have kept the franchise going for so...
Wait, how old is this video? 1 month ago, there's a new Thor movie? Huh? I didn't even know. What?
so long. Whereas The Boys has already preempted this with their commentary on child stars, and we can assume Ryan will play a big part in the next season. A new spin-off is already going in that direction. Marvel is going to keep giving them plenty of material, not that they were lacking. And if you take a look at Marvel's recent movies, it's clear they're losing their momentum. Other than Spider-Man, which has its own unique appeal, they haven't had any films hit the $1 billion mark since Endgame. Lots of them like Shang-Chi, Eternals, or the most recent Ant-Man haven't even got close to breaking even. Generic Marvel just doesn't do it anymore. The audience is tired of it. They've moved on, and The Boys was happy to pick up the slack, and by giving people better writing, actual tension, and
I mean, that was just a coincidence though that they picked up the slack. It is what it is. Anyway, that was pretty much it. That's Moon. He doesn't have an outro, but you know, link in the description if you want. Anyway, this was Quizzer said, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye bye.